Welcome back to the Bit Beacon broadcast. It's episode 008. The usual suspects are here.
Yep, Rick,
Taylor, Kodaks.
It's November 14th, 2023.
And you just got done listening to the brand new
Bit Beacon theme. That's right.
By friend of the show,
Matthew Kierkegaard. Big shout out. He improv that whole thing. It's amazing. We love it.
It's absolutely perfect. I'm really grateful for his help with this, his contribution. It will not be forgotten. We owe him a debt.
We owe him a debt long time.
Yeah, well, some of us more than others.
Yes, true.
So let's jump into what have we been playing, what have we been buying. You want me to go first?
Yes, you go first.
Okay. So, what have I been playing? I've long finished Final Fantasy 16. I've been playing a fair bit of Mario Wonder this past week. I think I'm on maybe the 4th world at this point. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's only 5 or 6 total worlds, although I have a feeling the game is hiding something from me.
I bet.
Yeah, usually Mario games have 8 worlds, so
yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to go to what I think is the boss and then something's going to happen. It's
a new world opens up or something.
I've been enjoying it a lot. There was this one particular level, I think it was in the 2nd world. It was kind of a hidden level called Jump, Jump, Jump. And it's one of those stages where you have to, almost like to the beat of the music, which gets progressively faster, you have to like time your jumps and your movements.
So like a rhythm level?
Yeah, but like all the platforms are disappearing like in conjunction with the rhythm. And it's only about a 50-second level from start to finish.
Wow.
But I had to go at it for probably an hour straight.
Yeah.
And I refused to move on. I was... there were times where I would get so close and then I was like, okay, the next one, I finally got it. And then I'd do like 10 attempts in a row where I didn't even get close. But man, did it feel so good when I finally got there. Except I get off into the platform and there's the little thing I have to collect at the end of the level, right?
You're right.
And there were these coins surrounding it. So I started going for the coins around it and then the timer ran out.
Oh, that'll do it.
So they distracted me with the shiny coins, and I had to spend about another 15 minutes of attempts before I finally got back, and I said, screw those coins, I'm grabbing that thing, I'm getting out of here, and I'm never doing this level again.
This is the fruit that you mentioned last week, right?
So they're not actually fruit. I should correct me. They're seeds.
Okay.
They're seeds. They're different kind of seeds based on which world you're visiting.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, they look like the stars in that they have the little long eyes and the mouth kind of thing. But, yeah, they're seeds, not fruit. So, correction from last week.
Okay. I'm curious about this game a lot. So, could you compare it to, like, New Super Mario Brothers or something? Like, how...
What really sets Super Mario Brothers Wonder apart from any 2D Mario game that's come prior is that in every single level, there is this hidden Wonder Seed. Mm-hmm. And... you want to collect it because it helps you unlock other levels, and you need so many Wonder Seeds to get to the castle at the end of the world or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, it'll totally flip the script on the whole entire level. So it's usually somewhere around the halfway point of the level. You can find this hidden Wonder Seed, and every single level has one of these hidden Wonder Seeds.
Right.
And it will change how the game plays for like the next 3 to 4 minutes. Like there was one point where instead of being a side-scrolling game, it became like a top-down Mario game.
As soon as you picked up the...
As soon as you pick up the Wonder Seed, there's like this cool like transformation effect that happens on screen. Mm-hmm. And like there's sometimes like the whole level will start like collapsing and like this giant like ball is tumbling and like destroying the whole entire level, and you're like having to like stay afloat on top of it while...
And all of this is presented like cinematically?
cinematically, but you're playing through the whole thing as well. It's not like a cutscene is playing out.
Okay.
Like, I mean, there's like a brief, like 1-2 second transformation cutscene as the level kind of shifts to whatever weird, wacky thing is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really not a whole lot of repeating of ideas either. Like, there's some sort of like, okay, you can see they kind of did a similar thing for this level that they did for another level you played earlier, but it's like an evolution on top of that. It's like they were training you in that earlier Wonder Seed moment, and now you're getting like a more advanced, challenging form. And so it's been very wonderful
Mm-hmm.
to
Pun intended.
yeah, pun intended, to experience all these really creative, just out there, like wacky ideas that you would not expect to encounter in a seemingly traditional 2D Mario game.
Gotcha. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I read, I don't have a quote exactly, but I read that Nintendo told the team just to go wild. Like, don't let yourself be held back by the constraints of a 2D Mario. We want to give these moments for you to like do weird, interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's points where like Mario will like totally transform, and like you start interacting, instead of going from side to side, all of a sudden the level is like vertical down to up, kind of a thing, where you're like floating, or this giant balloon thing, and you're bouncing all over all kinds of objects, and or there's like a million stars raining down, so you can get like all this invincibility. It's just constantly surprising me. Every single level you're finding something new, and they do a good job of not making these things too hidden, because I do think they want the player to experience these wonderful moments.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can miss them. Like, I've completed some levels and I'm like, what the heck, how did I not find the Wonder Seed? So I've had to go back and like be a little more careful as I progress through the level. And in some cases, finding the Wonder Seed will basically get you to an alternate ending of the level, as opposed to where the level would have ended normally. So some levels you do almost want to play twice, once with the Wonder Seed ending, and then once without the Wonder Seed effect.
I see.
But not all levels are like that. Most of the levels, I'd say 90% of them, there's still the same conclusion to the level, but there's like a special moment in it. But yeah, there are times where it does encourage you to sort of explore the level differently a following time. Almost like a Sonic game.
I see. So to me, that speaks to why I set Nintendo apart from other studio or other console holders, but other, big publishers. For them to tell their development team, go wild.
Yeah.
That's the best thing an artist can hear.
Right.
And for them to be able to just make the level vertical all of a sudden.
Right.
That requires a lot from a development perspective. You have to write all kinds of new physics, scripts, and all new state machines and stuff, like to completely change the way the game is played.
Oh yeah, so everything is changing.
Intensive for resources.
Yeah.
But for Nintendo to just bankroll that and just have faith in their artists that they're making like a good experience, that's something that Nintendo does. Right. And this is proof.
It's almost unique to Nintendo.
Exactly.
It's almost like Nintendo can afford to do that.
That's
other
my
developers can't.
That's my point. Exactly. 100%. So great to hear. I want to play this game.
It's after I'm finished, you're welcome to borrow my copy.
That'd be dope.
It really is like, I mean, the 2D Mario games were kind of growing, I don't want to say stale, but a little ho-hum. Like, you knew what you were getting with a 2D Mario game.
Right.
Right. And so this has now said, we know players think they know what they're getting with 2D Mario, so let's give them something different.
I'll second that opinion. With the new Super Mario Brothers on Wii U, I love it, and it's beloved by, for all the right reasons and stuff, but it is the same mechanic as like Super Mario World.
Yeah.
There's not really anything new on the table.
I think, I can't remember if the first new Super Mario Brothers game introduced multiplayer or if it was the Wii U one. Mm-hmm. But I know...
the Wii U one did have co-op.
Yeah, it had like 4-player.
Yeah. And
this also has that. I think 2D Mario is a little I prefer to play solo.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I could see coming at it from a party angle where it's just pure chaos, you know?
Right.
Like, and that can be fun in its own way.
If you have close friends and stuff, that
Right.
would be fun, I think. But yeah, solo is always
Yeah,
fun.
and I mean, like, this game has a lot of characters to choose from, and they all play, all the human characters play the same. You know, you got Mario, you got Luigi, you got Peach, you got Daisy, and then you have, like, different Yoshis, you have different Toads, I think. And then there's also some other characters you can play as well. And I know, like, Yoshi, they do get that sort of, like, extra little jump that they can do. You know, like, if they hold on to the jump and they go,
yeah, it's
you know?
like an extended jump.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna play as Mario the first time I play through this game. You know, I want to get like the pure Mario experience. But like Luigi doesn't have like the weird like floaty jump that Luigi does normally. He plays exactly the same as Mario, which some people I could see maybe being kind of disappointed, but they do provide alternate options to play the game a little differently. But I don't think they want like Luigi to be like easy mode, you know?
Right.
And that's like relegated to like characters like Yoshi. And there's even some characters in the game that like just don't take damage, period. So
what? Really?
Yeah, I think it's Nabbit. It's this character they introduced, I think, in the new Super Mario Brothers games. It's like this little rabbit bandit looking character. And so, like, if you were playing...
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he has, like, a little sack that he carries around.
Yeah.
If you were playing with someone...
He was like a bad guy in New Super Mario.
Exactly, yeah. If you were playing with someone who's maybe not super great at the game, you know, you could play as Mario, and maybe they could play as Nabbit, and that way they wouldn't really be inhibiting your playthrough. There's also this really cool asynchronous kind of multiplayer thing going on if you choose to enable it or not, where you can see other players playing the level almost like a ghost at the same time as you, except it's not a ghost. They are actually live playing the level. And for example, if your character falls in a pit and dies or something, right? You become like a little ghost temporarily. You have 5 seconds. And if your ghost can touch another one of these like asynchronous players, your character like comes back to life.
Early?
Instead of like going back to the checkpoint or back to the beginning of the level, you can just like revive right there essentially.
Like it never happened.
Almost like it never happened. You don't even lose like one of your lives.
I
see. It's pretty cool. Players can also like put these little like signboards up, and like there's like different like emotions or characters pointing in different things. So
inside the level?
Inside the level, yeah. So they can post like a Mario like kind of pointing up or something, like indicating that like, hey, maybe you should look over here.
Okay.
It's actually I turned it on because I thought like this is pretty unique. I want to kind of experience this. They don't get in the way of me playing the game, and you know they can make the game a little easier at times. Like sometimes people will have posted like one of the little signpost things, and the signpost can also revive you, much like a ghost player can.
Okay.
So sometimes players have them at like really tough spots. You know, they'll have the little thing posted so you can kind of attempt a thing over and over again. This feature is exclusive if you only have Nintendo Switch Online, though. So if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have access to this asynchronous multiplayer kind of thing.
I see.
There is also co-op as well, but I believe it's local only. I don't think you can do it online.
I gotcha. But that's a really interesting way of doing multiplayer.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's inspired quite a bit by games like Dark Souls, who have this sort of asynchronous multiplayer thing as well, where people's ghosts can like leave notes and messages, and sometimes players in those games will like lead someone towards a trap.
Right. From my understanding, they'll show you how that player died.
Exactly. Yeah, like someone who died there can leave a message, and they can either warn you about something if they want, or they could lie to you and, you know, tell you, oh, you know, don't go this way, you know, go this way instead. And then you go that way, and then some crazy monster is there and one-shots you, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, like, players they don't just use it to be nice, they can also use it to be a little mischievous as well. Haven't seen so much of the mischievousness in Mario, Although I don't know that there's as many opportunities for it as there is in one of those hardcore Dark Souls,
Right. You would almost
Demon
have to,
Souls games.
from what I'm hearing, you'd almost have to get really creative to be mischievous.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's opportunity for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be surprised if I encounter something like that before I finish the game.
Gotcha.
But aside from that, I won't talk about it too much. But Genshin Impact just had its big 4.2 patch update, Masquerade of the Guilty, and I spent my entire long 3-day weekend, thanks to the holiday. Appreciate you, veterans. Playing through all of that, conquering all of the new story and exploration stuff, and I'm like 100% done with it again. So now I got that game sort of back in maintenance mode. Aside from that, I did have one game pickup in the last week. A brand new 3DS game has come out. This is Shakedown Hawaii. This is a limited release, only 3,000 copies of the standard, as well as 3,000 copies of the limited edition that they had that came bundled with like a little action figure.
Mm-hmm.
And Shakedown Hawaii is from the creator of Retro City Rampage. Yep. And the creator of Retro City Rampage is largely credited with creating he was the first guy to come up with the limited print distribution.
Right.
So back in the day, back in like 2014, I think it was 2014.
I thought it was earlier, but maybe.
I know it was the year that PlayStation Experience happened, so I think that was 2014.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He put out a really limited release of Retro City Rampage for PS4, and I think it was only like 1,500 copies or something like that. And that's where the guys at Limited Run got the idea to release their games in a limited print format like that. And now it's spawned an entire industry.
Yeah.
So the creator of Retro City Rampage went on to make another game in a similar vein called Shakedown Hawaii. And both of these games are like old school top-down Grand Theft Auto style games. Like Grand Theft Auto 1, 2, and 3.
That game originally came out quite a while ago.
It did, yeah. So while it's not new to 3DS in terms of its digital release happened many years ago, the 3DS release physical copy just became available last week, and they got it to me same week after I purchased it, I think on Monday.
So I'm curious how he was able to do a physical run.
He had the he's held on to the cartridges.
Okay, so he just now released them.
Exactly.
He printed them
before the deadline.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, maybe it was like a manufacturing delay. You know, he does things like himself.
Right.
So he's not a big company like Limited Run is at this point. Now, Limited Run supposedly has said earlier this year that they have another 3DS game that they haven't announced that they still plan to distribute. That they already have, assembled and manufactured and everything. So Limited Run, there seems to be this race, not really a race so much, but like there's a few publishers who seemingly still have 3DS games that they haven't, physical 3DS games that they haven't released to the public yet. Same goes for Vita. There's still a couple companies, or specifically Nicholas, we know confirmed have unreleased Vita games that they haven't sold yet.
One that I'm aware of, and I only know this because certain the hole punched PlayStation copies have leaked.
Yeah, that's why we know that Nicholas has Vita games they haven't released yet.
Right, but Super Meat Boy.
No, that did release.
It did?
Yeah. Limited Run released that last year.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sony does this thing where they give employees free copies of games, but they have a hole punch through the UPC code on the back.
Right.
So some games that haven't been distributed yet have leaked through these weird sealed hole punch employee copies.
They give them to devs as well.
Yeah.
I received one from PlayStation for Last Guardian.
Oh, they sent you one?
Yeah, on PS4.
Okay. I know at PlayStation Experience there were a couple of the years where there were just guys walking around with bags of games, these hole punch games, and they were just randomly handing them out to people.
Yeah.
Just
I got one of those too. I think it was Paradox. I forgot the name of the game on PS4.
Okay.
An indie game on PS4.
Okay. Yeah, I have a Vita game with a hole punch, of Otome visual novel. Those are like romance novels they're made for women primarily.
Right.
And I have a couple. I got like a copy of Rocksmith, which is that like learning guitar game, where you plug in like a real guitar to your console. That game, I have a hole punch copy of that. And then there's one other game I have a hole punch copy of as well. But anyways, some indie devs were not happy about those hole punch copies going out because they spoiled their releases.
Right.
And that's seemingly why Nicholas has still yet to release their couple of Vita games that they have.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, I think the hole punch copies are something that people haven't caught on to as much yet.
Right.
But that's like a whole other,
oh yeah,
like,
there's like people,
version of the game that's rare. And,
because it's sealed.
Right.
Like just as well as like any game. Like the hole punch isn't punched through the cellophane.
You have to keep it sealed.
Yeah. Otherwise,
there's
no evidence
anyone can have hole punched it.
Exactly. Yeah, and these seals are like the special fold that like you can really only do at like the manufacturer level.
Right.
The Y fold they call it.
Right. It's not shrink wrap.
Yeah, unfortunately the Shakedown Hawaii release is shrink wrapped.
Oh, okay.
And he made sure people knew about that in advance. He's like, it's not possible for me to get the manufacturer Y fold any longer. So he's like, these are all shrink wrapped. So just so you're aware, which was good of him to do because, you know, if he hadn't said anything, people would have been disappointed when they got it.
So you're going to keep it sealed?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, at this point, any 3DS game that comes on the market, I could probably play it a million different ways. It's more of a weird collectible audit. This might very well be the last 3DS game, although that's happened like twice in the last year and a half or so that I've purchased the last 3DS game and seemingly a new one still comes to light.
Right.
But I'll keep grabbing them. Like I said, I know Limited Run, they've already confirmed they have another one they haven't announced yet. So I know I got that to look forward to. But yeah, anyways, this guy, he started a huge industry trend, and you know, I think his name is Brian. Last name starts with a P. It's like Pravicino or something like that, and I apologize, Brian.
I think we've both met him.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's been accessible at PlayStation Experience, I think, almost every single year.
Yeah.
There was a note included with the game that said his next game would be made 100% for dead consoles.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I'm sure it'll probably eventually get released on modern platforms. But yeah, it was like, my next game is going to come out for, like, truly
Genesis and Super
that
Nintendo.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
So interesting. You know, I'm glad he's at that point in his life. He's probably made enough money off these couple of games.
Well, he's going to make a ton more money doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, like, Shakedown Hawaii and Retro City Rampage released for, like, 10, 15 different platforms each. Like, ranging from, like, DOS.
He's ported that around quite a bit.
Yeah. Which is cool, you know, have your game on so many different things officially.
Why not?
Yeah. Aside from that, I don't have anything else.
All right. So, that's all really interesting stuff. I don't have something that interesting. I did order off of Limited Run the Persona 3 portable version. I actually bought it for all three consoles.
So they had it available for
Switch, PS4, and Xbox.
So you might say you're something of a Shin Megami simp.
Whatever you want to call it. But I've always been that. And I love Shin Megami Tensei. I love Atlas.
Right.
I love them almost as much, if not as much, as Square Enix. You know, so
yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Shin Megami Tensei is a long-running series, and the Persona games are a spin-off of the Shin Megami
Right.
Tensei series.
So Persona 1 was actually called Shin Megami Tensei Persona.
Right.
Shin Megami Tensei has been going on since the original Nintendo
Like
console.
the 80s.
Yeah. It was, yeah. So I think the first 3 Shin Megami Tensei
We're on the
games
Famicom.
were on the Famicom. And then there was Shin Megami Tensei If, which was like some alternate timeline thing. Like a what-if scenario.
Right.
And then I believe the series went towards, like, gravitated towards Sega. And then that's when it actually started becoming called Shin Megami Tensei.
Okay.
Prior,
it was just Megami Tensei.
it was
right?
Megami Tensei something.
Okay.
And yeah, so since then, there's been numerous installments. My favorite has always been, my first was Nocturne.
Okay.
Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. Re-released on Switch now, called Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. They added the 3 like retroactively to that title.
Interesting.
The original Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne also featured Dante from Devil May Cry.
That's right. It had the infamous logo.
Yes. Yeah. And so that was it played with my brain. Like it affected my development as a person.
As a child.
Yeah. And so ever since then, Shin Megami Tensei has been a big thing for me.
The Persona series, though, has blown up, and some might even say, in terms of popularity, surpassed Shin Megami Tensei.
Sure. So we could compare this to Mario versus Yoshi in a way.
Sure.
Yoshi absolutely began as a Mario title.
Right.
Right. And then Yoshi started getting
its own games.
And yeah, it has become its own thing.
Right.
And Persona has enough mechanical uniqueness from Shin Megami Tensei to be its own franchise. And that's fine. Right. It's still within the Shin Megami Tensei umbrella.
Still in the family, for sure.
Right.
So this particular version of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Portable was originally released for PSP a long time ago. And it's considered like the ultimate version of Shin Megami Tensei 3.
Right.
Or Persona 3, excuse me.
Yeah.
And now it was ported to PC, I think a year ago or 2 years ago. And then last year it got digital only releases on PS4, Switch, and Xbox. And now this year, Limited Run has managed to convince Sega/Atlas to let them release physical copies. And they've really stressed, Limited Run that is, has stressed that like this is a very special arrangement. Mm-hmm. And these games will not be sold at retailers elsewhere. These games will not be distributed in other territories physically. Like this is going to be a North America only thing. A lot of times Limited Run games ended up getting sold by other retailers. Retailers can place orders with Limited Run, and now Limited Run gives these retailers like a discount for large bulk orders.
Right.
But Sega/Atlas specifically forbade Limited Run.
Yeah, Atlas has always been this way with their production numbers. If you go back to their past titles, they had one of the Shin Megami Tensei spin-offs was Jack Brothers on Virtual Boy. Extremely low production.
Like Atlas games historically.
Yes, exactly.
Until very recently.
All of the Tactics Ogre games are super low production. All of them.
Yeah.
Ogre Battle, all of those are...
Yeah, not just the games they develop, but the ones they publish, too. Back in, like, the PSP, PS2, Game Boy Advance.
Touch Detective on Nintendo DS. I'm going way obscure now.
That's actually... Nicholas just announced a remaster of Touch Detective 1, 2, and for the very first time, Touch Detective 3 is going to be releasing in the West on Switch as a combo pack.
That I'm interested in. I will be buying that.
Yeah.
I beat the first 2.
Loved
them.
Okay.
Loved those games. Fungi, the little pet character.
I've always been curious about them, and I was like, these are like DS obscurities now.
Oh, dude, they're like... I didn't think anything of them when I first started playing them, but as soon as I played them, it's one of those point and click mystery type.
Right.
Really good.
Yeah.
It's dark, but it's also cute.
Yeah.
It's dark and cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, love those games.
So yeah, that's getting. I think early first quarter of next year that's coming out.
Okay.
And again, Touch Detective 3 never released in the
Yeah,
West
I've never
before.
even I didn't even know there was a 3.
Exactly. So that's pretty cool that Nicholas does some questionable things, but this is a pretty cool get for them, and
You better keep me like in the loop.
Oh yeah, it's already available for pre-order at all major retailers.
Okay, I'll be doing that as soon as we get done.
It's not a limited, although Nicholas does have on their website, and this is Nicalis, not Nicholas like the name. If you buy the version from their website, it includes a full color like manual, which the regular retail release will not have.
Interesting.
So if you want to get like a limited variant version of it, that's where you go.
Okay, I'll be doing that right now.
We're gonna take a break, everyone. Okay, so and you've been playing anything?
Yeah, so I have been continuing my chore of the Zeo Drifter speedrun trophy.
You sound a little soured on it.
At this point, I'm really kind of feeling like I'm approaching like the 43-minute mark, and I'm looking at what's left, and I'm like, this is not...
It's not coming together.
Yeah, I'm spending so much time resetting and doing the same like chain of gameplay from one save point to the next, and like 10 times.
Yeah.
And I'm killing like 2 hours and accomplishing sometimes nothing. And this is like, I don't know. I'm not great at dodging every enemy.
Right.
You know, I consider myself a skilled gamer, but I'm not a speedrunner.
Right.
You know?
It's a different mentality. Like, when I play a game, I want to eliminate every enemy from the screen.
Right.
And then move on.
You want to engage in combat as you were intended to by the game design.
But if you're a speedrunner, you want to avoid as much of that as possible.
You literally try to jump over all the, you only
every obstacle.
You only shoot if it's like there's no surpassing it otherwise. And I'm just not great at that. If I fall like in the liquid or whatever, that's it. I have to reset, and it's to that point now where I'm just kind of like, I don't think I'm going to make this. The boss battles take just too long.
Right.
Like, I'm going to get to the point where I'm saved right in front of the final boss, and I have like 3 minutes to do, that I'm fearful of that position.
Right.
So I'm kind of losing just emotional interest. I like to play based on what I feel.
I feel like you should still finish your playthrough, even if you don't get the trophy. So you can say, hey, I did it in 1 hour and 3 minutes,
Yeah, but I don't know.
I think that might sting
I could
more.
be doing so much better things with my life.
I could have told you this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't think it would be this difficult.
Right.
I thought, like, if you know that you have to hurry, you can do it.
Right.
But no, this is actually a real freaking challenge. Like, they're actually... Like, they timed themselves and then subtracted 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not, like, gonna delete my save file, obviously. So I could always come back to this, but I don't know how much time I'm gonna invest in it. I could be playing, new games.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I've always felt about speedrun kind of stuff. It's like, I don't want to play the same game again. Like, there's a finite amount of time.
I did already beat this game.
Yeah,
I've already seen it.
Exactly. So...
Yeah,
I mean, that's a bummer to have spent as much time as you have, and
I mean, it's all learning experience.
That's true. But now you know never to try again.
This speedrun stuff is a chore. It's not like, I can't call this fun.
I like watching speedrunners.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But me doing it myself,
like, if you are a speedrunner and you're listening to this, I salute you. I respect you. I'm not talking down about speedrunning as a medium or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
But this is not for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that fun. I'd rather play a game, like a new game.
Okay.
So that's it for that.
Have you been up to much of anything? I don't think either of us really have, right?
Not really. Getting this music set up with Matthew,
Yeah.
which is great. We
Yeah.
have that.
I know that was a collaborative thing between the two of you.
Yeah, it was.
So again, yeah, thank you, Matthew, but also thank you, Rick, for working with him to
for
get
sure.
us this awesome piece.
We're slowly building this thing, and
Yeah.
it's come. Another major piece has
Yeah,
come.
I mean, this is a big part. This makes us feel, like we're one of the big boys now.
Yeah, exactly. We have something professional to show.
Now we just need the big bucks.
Yep, the big bucks for big boys.
I haven't done much of anything lately, but this weekend I am going to the Genshin Impact concert in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
This is at the Peacock Theater, formerly known as the Microsoft Theater,
Mm-hmm.
formerly known as the Nokia Theater.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the concert, and I'll definitely have a lot more to say about it when we next record.
Do you know who's going to be there? Is the composer going to be there?
I don't know if there's any special guests or not beyond, a huge orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I will definitely be carrying a Sharpie in my shoe.
Yeah, definitely.
I know we are getting like a cool commemorative ticket thing. Everyone's going to get something like that, as well as like a code to redeem for some goodies in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be cool. So,
Gotcha.
because Genshin Impact is not released physically
Right.
in any capacity.
Right.
So, I mean, there's not much to get signed beyond this little commemorative ticket that I might have, but I'll keep an eye out.
The concert program.
If there's a program, yeah. Believe it or not, I don't know how common that is anymore.
If there happens to be one,
Yeah.
and you happen to be able to swipe a second one,
Well, my
I'd love
girlfriend
that.
will be with me,
Okay.
so
Well,
there's a possibility if they give out multiple programs.
I'd love to have that. I'd love to scan that and
Yeah.
upload it.
Oh, I know. I mean, I still have my program from the 25th anniversary Zelda concert in Los Angeles.
Yep, and back in the day,
We scanned that
We
in on the
scanned it.
BitBeak, and you can
Yeah.
find it if you go back to 2011.
I just actually was there
Okay.
a couple days ago looking.
My iPad has locked up, and now I gotta unlock it to look at my notes.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into the news now.
Well, not quite the news. We gave ourselves some homework last week before we ended the episode. We were talking about the just announced Zelda movie.
Yep.
And
I
we said
remember.
we would find some actors, do a little bit of fan casting of who we would want to play the characters, or who we think would be a good fit for the characters. So I'll go first. We'll let everyone be in anticipation of Rick's picks, because he's got some really good ones here listed.
Yeah, you know me.
Um,
I'm all about them celebrities.
I'm talking about actors here, not celebrities. Although it's hard to find the distinction these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so for Link, I said there's no known actor that I would want to see cast in this role. Like, if they cast someone who's known, I know this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I really do think they should do like a really intense search for the perfect Link. Spend 5 months going through thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hire anyone who's a known quantity in the industry.
Yes.
I think for Link, you don't want someone with an ego.
No.
Okay? Because if you hire
no.
someone with an ego, they're going to want to talk.
There's that, and then also there's just the fact that they're like you can place them in other movies in your mind.
Yeah.
And you want to see a new face that's Link.
I know the new Star Wars movies weren't exactly well received, but I know that that's the approach they went for finding the lead actress Rey. They've really kind of found an unknown, and I think maybe there's differing opinions on how well that went.
You're right. There are.
I do think that that's still the right way to do Link.
They had the right approach.
Yeah.
I don't think they did a
I
good job.
I will say I don't think Star Wars. Let's not get too distracted, but I don't think Star Wars problems are the new Star Wars trilogy. I don't think it's the actress's fault. I don't think it's it's her performance.
In some instances, it is.
Okay, well, I disagree. I think it's mostly the fault of the writers and the people creating.
I'm not
movies.
talking about Ray specifically.
Okay.
Though, just the actors in general.
Right. Not all of the actors were total unknowns, though. They did pick some names, although most of those people have now become big names in the industry. But okay, so for Link, I think they should cast an unknown, a complete unknown. And so from the next three people I'm going to say, so we got Zelda, we got Ganondorf, and then for fun, I threw in Tingle.
Mm-hmm.
Tingle, the little green.
I'm sure he's going to be in the movie.
I hope so. If he's
I
not,
agree.
It'd be
I
a
hope
disaster.
He is. That'd be awesome.
Okay, so for Zelda, I think Elle Fanning should be Zelda. Now, I don't know if you know, that's Dakota Fanning's younger sister, but now they're obviously adults.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she has a very ethereal presence to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like she could.
I
put some
don't even know who
her.
this is, so that's me.
Well, that's a problem. You should have looked at my choices before.
Yeah, but I'd rather be genuine.
All right, so let me kind of show you what Elle Fanning looks like. She's got.
I got her already. I got her.
She's got an
interesting
look.
I see it. Yeah. That would work.
I think so. She's actually a good actress, and
she's got that Helayan look to her.
Yeah, like she could be, young Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Right.
If there was ever a young Galadriel, I have no idea. But yeah, I think she would be a good pick for Zelda. Okay, for Ganondorf, because I know they need to cast. There's got to be some diversity in the movie. That's just how movies work now. Yeah. They're not just going to cast a movie with all white people. So for Ganondorf, obviously whoever gets cast as Ganondorf is going to need some green body paint, right?
Right.
I don't know how else you do Ganondorf. So I think with Ganondorf, you need someone with a big physical presence, right?
Yeah.
You're on your phone. Time to...
I'm listening to you.
All right. So you need someone with a big physical presence. And I think Idris Elba is a good choice.
Okay.
Are you aware of who Idris Elba is?
Yeah, I just looked at him.
You just looked at him. Okay. So I think with green body paint, I mean, look at that. He could
that image right there kind of says yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think he could get the dread look thing going on that Ganondorf has. He's physically imposing.
Does Ganondorf have dreads?
I mean, he has like those curly kind of...
Curls aren't dreads.
Okay, they're not dreads, but they're clearly like predefined like hair things going on, okay? Dreads was the wrong word. But I'm saying I think he could pull that off. I think he could pull that look off real easily. And then for Tingle... I think this actor might be offended because I don't think he likes to be typecast too much.
Well, he has been in the past.
He has
willingly.
Yeah, but I think he's been critical. I know there was a moment where he was critical of Disney's Snow White live action thing, and he said like...
I think you know where we're going here.
Anyways, Peter Dinklage.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should be Tingle. I think it would be a fun role for him to be really flamboyant and silly, and he could just be this guy who pops up a couple times in the movie, helping Link out with some things. That's Tingle was my silly pick, but yeah, I know a lot of people have been saying they want Danny DeVito to be Tingle.
Yeah, I would be on board with that.
I could see that too.
I would prefer that, actually.
I mean, Danny DeVito is short and he's rotund. Mm-hmm. He's got the little belly like Tingle does.
Part of Tingle's character is that he's very old. The game says 40 years old.
Right.
But I think the message there is that he's old.
Right.
He's an old dude.
Like he's this dude chasing fairies into his 40s.
Grown, middle-aged man.
I kind of wonder what kind of comment they were making when they...
Just a middle-aged man in a tight suit.
Yeah. Just like, what are you doing with your life?
Right. Danny DeVito would fill that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, like, Tingle is necessarily a little person. He's short.
Right. I mean, Danny DeVito, I don't know his actual height, but I would not be shocked if he qualifies as a little person.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think his height matches Tingle a little bit better than Peter Dinklage.
Okay.
In my opinion.
All right. I think, I mean, if Danny DeVito gets in the Zelda movie, I'm a happy.
Oh,
I'm
I'd
a
love
happy guy.
that. I'd love that.
I'm a happy guy.
If there's your, top tier A-list actor.
Right.
We don't need any more. Keep Danny DeVito as Tingle. That's it.
But I think it's unlikely Nintendo goes that route.
Yeah.
It's a little too it's distracting almost if Danny DeVito's in your movie.
Yeah.
I
agree.
So that's why I thought Dinklage might be a little more of an understated pick.
I would argue Peter
He's
Dinklage.
big. He's big.
Bigger than Danny DeVito in a way. Yeah, okay. We're being modern right now, okay? We're being modern right now.
God.
Game of Thrones, all this other stuff he's been
know.
in. Okay? He was in Elf, all that.
Right.
Like, hey, what has Danny DeVito been doing?
Okay, Danny DeVito, first of all, he's timeless. Second of all, he's been in 15 seasons of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Which is still airing to this day.
Right, because that's comparable to Game of Thrones, right?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if just as... I mean, there's not fervor for the new episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but, it is one of those shows that people do just sit down and get around to eventually. Whereas, Game of Thrones, yes, it's oh my god, I need to be there.
Yeah, you subscribe to Netflix for that.
Right. So, I mean, he's one small part of Game of Thrones. That's a huge ensemble.
He's in every episode.
Every episode, sure. But
I wouldn't.
I don't know that he has 45 minutes of the hour of screen time,
so,
does he?
I mean, no actor does.
Right.
But, the way the Game of Thrones episodes work is there's a bunch of different storylines going on simultaneously. He's one of them, for sure.
Yeah.
He is a big part of Game of Thrones, definitely.
All right, so maybe he's a bigger get than Danny DeVito. I don't know.
Okay, Danny DeVito is more of a legacy actor, and
Right.
he's got big, he was the Penguin and stuff in
Right.
Batman, etc., etc.
But I will say he has maintained relevancy.
Sure.
More than a lot of other actors from his era.
I mean, he's kind of like a joke household name in a way, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, I mean, he's in a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, Peter Dinklage in a TV show, too.
Yeah, they both are.
And I don't think most of Peter Dinklage's movies have been particularly well received. Although I did see him in a movie last year. I went to a test screening for a movie that's now out, so I can talk about it, called The Toxic Avenger. Mm-hmm. It's a remake of a cult indie film from way back in the 70s or 80s or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he was really, really good in it, really funny. I would like to sit down and watch that movie with you. I think you'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah, we can do that.
But, all right, Rick. You got any picks for us for your Zelda movie? Do any homework this past week?
Yeah, so, actually I did.
Okay.
In fact. And
you just left it blank?
Yeah, I left it blank because my answer is all unknowns. I want all unknowns. I don't want a single... No? Okay? No, don't roll your eyes. Because this is the answer I would have picked. I could have done all the research.
All right, but that's not fun.
I don't care.
Okay.
I want to be right. I want the Zelda movie to be good. I agree with you about Zelda.
Oh, okay. You think that's a good pick?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And that's about it. But, yeah, she does look the part.
Right.
And she would be good. I don't know who she is.
Right.
So she's unknown.
She's going to be in Kojima's next game.
Okay.
Death Stranding 2.
That's fine.
And she's worked a lot with one of Kojima's fanboy directors, Nicholas Winding Refn.
Right. As long as she's not, being in Disney movies and et cetera, et cetera.
She may have been in a Disney movie. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, she's not in Marvel's Avengers.
No, she's not a superhero yet.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Although it's only a matter of time.
Right. Okay. So she's up and coming. There you go. There's your middle of the road actress, between unknown and A-list. You know.
Yeah, some might argue she's A-list, but I think she's still a good pick.
Okay, fair.
Physically, she...
Link better be an unknown. I do not want anyone that I recognize in that role.
I mean, there's a lot of... I went online and I looked at what kind of actors people were suggesting, and it was a lot of younger, early to mid 20 somethings who like are kind of up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like most people probably wouldn't recognize them. But you know, depending on how much you have your finger on the pulse of like,
you do want someone with some experience. I'm not saying they've never been in anything ever.
Right.
But, you know, when I say no, I mean you're not seeing them on TMZ, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, you know, yeah, there are a lot of people out there who have the look, I think, that could pull off Link.
Sure.
I knew, like, there was a guy at our high school that looked just like him, actually.
You're going to have to tell me off.
I don't remember his name, but he looked just like him.
Rick's daydreaming about some dude during high school.
Anyways,
that guy could be Link.
I see people who look like Link.
Okay.
You know, throughout life I've seen a few. So, I mean, the look exists. Ganondorf, same. I'd rather see a non-known actor, like somebody just random.
There's going to be so much makeup.
Yeah, there is.
And prosthetics, I think, for Ganondorf.
Well, I would... okay, so... Like, I would expect half this movie to be either CG or practical effect.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, the director who was announced last week, Wes Ball, it turns out 13 years ago on Twitter, now known as X, he had posted about working on the Zelda movie. And this is exactly what he said. He said, first of all, this is January 29th, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
He said, since I could never even hope to have a chance to direct it, the next big motion capture Avatar-like movie should be The Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about that? What do you think about the next Zelda movie being like Avatar, where we don't actually have actors?
So, considering his exact phrasing... That does not necessarily mean that he wants Zelda to be like Avatar. That means an Avatar-like movie should be the Zelda movie. Meaning that, like, the next big world builder, you know, sort of high visual effect.
Sure, so that's maybe what he was saying. But let's for a second presume he was saying... the Zelda movie. And again, this is him 13 years ago when he was like a kid.
Sure.
Probably, or like a 20-year-old.
I get it.
Let's say he really did mean that like the Zelda movie should be 100% mocap, computer generated, visuals.
Avatar's not that.
I mean, the actors...
Sigourney Weaver is not CG. She's a real woman.
Yes, okay. Yes, but you're right. You're absolutely right. There are human actors, but like... Okay, so you think in this world, Link, Zelda, other humans are humans.
Right.
And
well,
then you think,
they're Helaeans.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're... what do you call it? They're humanoids.
Okay, humanoid.
They have a humanoid appearance.
So, I mean, no, not necessarily all humanoids should be... Well, if you have motion capture going on, everything is going to be a human. At the end of the day. But when it comes to the Gorons, I don't see someone... I guess you could really get away with prosthetics, like extreme prosthetics.
Do you think this is a movie where they're going to take time to explore all the different races of Hyrule?
I don't... there's been no information about what kind of story they're going to do, so I'm just not going to theorize until we know something.
I mean, yeah, part of me wonders, like, is a movie a right choice?
I don't think so. I never did.
I feel like it's...
I do think that one trailer, mock parody trailer...
the old IGN
the
trailer.
IGN trailer.
Like 2007.
They did a good job with that, portraying what a Zelda movie might be like.
Yeah.
And if we look at that, and I hope they look at that.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't think they should try to mimic it completely, but there was there was a potential that glowed from that trailer, you know, for a Zelda movie, in my opinion. But as far as like the whole world being CG, I don't know how deep they're planning on going with practical effects.
Yeah.
It seems like studios these days
rarely use it. Yeah.
I think they're probably going to lean more into the CG, which is fine. CG is at a point where it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, it can when you use the correct amount of time to make it look right. And the corn guy is back, everyone, honking his little horn. So yeah, that's going to be going on in the background. Yeah, I guess for me, I go to the movies. I see a lot of like I wouldn't say a lot. I don't go to the movies nearly as much as I used to. But when I do go to the movies and I go to see a big like blockbuster special effects movie, I've noticed the special effects are getting worse.
Yeah.
And that so many times there's like big action scenes involving lots of effects and it's always dark. Mm-hmm. So that way they can mask, you know, the special effects behind shadow. So they don't have to do nearly as much to make it look good.
You see that a lot with like any sort of monster movies or Transformers, etc. It's always nighttime. It's always dark. It's always raining.
Yeah.
You know,
during
the big. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of Marvel movies.
That came to mind for me too. I stopped going to the movies years ago. I just don't even bother with Hollywood or movies. Yeah. I have games.
Right.
So
still see the Sonic movie though.
Yeah. I love a new Zelda game.
Yeah.
They can put out another game. You know, why do we need a movie? But I don't know.
Yeah, we talked about that last week a little bit.
If we're going to make a movie, let's do it right.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll keep everyone apprised as new information comes about the movie. But now I think we should move on to some news. And the first piece we have here is PlayStation has now removed the ability to share pictures and videos directly to X, formerly known as Twitter, from your PS4, from your PS5. So last week, Sony sent out a notification to PlayStation users that PlayStation would no longer support uploading media to X. This was effective November 13th, so yesterday. Mm-hmm. I should probably log on and see if I can accomplish it still. Did you ever use this feature?
No, not really. If I did, it was with Final Fantasy 15, but I don't think I did.
I know a long time ago on PS4, I remember posting some stuff on Facebook when I was still using Facebook, and I posted some stuff on Twitter. It used to be a handy way to like get a screenshot off your PlayStation quickly, because otherwise you got to like plug in a USB stick.
That should still work though. You should still be able to save local screenshots, right?
You can still save screenshots. You just can't share them online immediately like that. Now you have to like plug in a USB. Although I think the PlayStation app and PlayStation 5 does let you share screenshots to your phones directly now. Mm-hmm. So there's less of a need to do that. But I remember sharing like, oh, I got this platinum trophy. Let me post the video on Twitter. Let me post it on Facebook.
I took a lot of screenshots, but I never felt
I take so many screenshots still to this day.
Oh, yeah.
During Final Fantasy 16, I made just shy of 1,000 screenshots from start to finish.
That's about what I did with 15.
And I love Final Fantasy 16 because whenever you hit the share button, it like does a freeze frame of the whatever screen you're on. So like pauses the game, pauses the frame. Yeah. So you don't get like a bunch of motion blur or something when you're taking the screenshot.
Final Fantasy 15 has a character who's a photographer, and that's highly kind of like implemented into that sharing.
Yeah, there's no photography mode in Final Fantasy 16. I know that's like a popular thing to add to big games.
But so Prompto has like all kinds of filters and camera, like, you know, because he's a photographer.
Yeah, you're recording your road trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they can do selfies, like the whole party does, like poses for a selfie, etc. Yeah. So the screenshots in 15 are great. Yeah, I took a lot. There's like, you know, you unlock. as you level up Prompto, he like learns new filters and stuff as part of his like skill tree, and that. I love it. I'm here for it.
You should take a look and see those screenshots. They add up because those screenshots are like in 4K resolution.
They're huge.
So yeah, I had over a gig of screenshots when I copied them to my USB, and it took hours. The PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 are so slow at transferring screenshots to like a thumb drive for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took more than 2 hours to transfer 1,000 screenshots, which a gigabyte should not take that long to transfer.
I have easily 2 gigs.
But it adds up.
Yeah.
Like, it'll start taking a big chunk of your storage space if you don't ever manage it.
100%.
So, these changes, we don't really have confirmation of why PlayStation decided to make this change, but we can speculate because there's been a lot of changes at X/Twitter over the last year.
And I'd wager that our speculations are correct.
So a lot of games and apps and third-party things that have Twitter API built into it have seen that those functions cease to function.
Right.
And so basically Elon has started asking people, hey, if you want to have access to the Twitter API, you need to pay up.
Right.
And so Sony's probably like, we're not going to pay you to let people upload screenshots directly
support
to your
platform.
And isn't that crazy? Social media, the way it's designed is users create free content that you then insert advertisements in between, and you essentially make free money.
So he would be asking us to pay him
to
be his product.
Yeah, exactly. That's bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not as concerned about the longevity as Twitter as some people are.
No.
I don't think it's going to die.
If it were, something will replace it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm worried that thing is Facebook's Threads, and I don't really want another social media run by Facebook. And I have noticed that like a lot of people, not a lot, but maybe a good chunk of people have stopped using Twitter over the last year just due to all the insanity going on there. And that's been a bummer. A lot of like game developers I follow, a lot of indie devs I follow.
A lot of people said that they were going to leave and then didn't.
Yeah, I have seen some people come back too. Yeah. That has happened. But I truly have lost some people that I enjoyed seeing. And I'm not going to go to 6 different apps to see what these people are doing. Because they've all chosen to go to a new place, And I just, Twitter was perfect. I don't know why. Okay, perfect.
I know I wouldn't call it perfect. That's...
For my purposes... For the world of Twitter that I was interested in, I didn't see all the horrible stuff going on there. I mean, like gaming Twitter, specifically like the sphere that I was in, I thought it was a pretty wholesome place. I enjoyed being there. But yeah, it's definitely shrunk. And I think if Twitter does go away, it'll be a huge blow to the gaming community, specifically indie developers and fans that rally around like small niche gaming topics like the Vita, as well as like a lot of Japanese developers use Twitter and like they post all kinds of cool stuff and we have access to them.
And like for us, in our purposes, it's a huge tool because that in some cases is our only access to certain people.
And for whatever reason, just it being Twitter, like you're likely to get a response from people. Like if you were to post on someone's like Facebook page or Instagram account, they might like block you or something. But because of the nature of Twitter, like you can interact with and get responses from people,
famous people,
who would normally never speak to you, for one reason or another, like because Twitter just has that open environment. And now people are more worried about various things on Twitter and abuse. Such as abuse, I should say. And so like a lot of people lock their accounts down, so you like can't get access to them anymore unless you were following prior, or they just left. And anyways, I don't know. I don't think the Japanese side of Twitter has really cares too much about a lot of the changes that have been ongoing.
No,
with
they
Twitter.
don't.
I don't think it affects them the same way like English side of Twitter does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been disappointing to watch just these head scratching decisions occur one after another.
Right.
And so, anyways,
I mean,
do hope Twitter.
I don't think
pulls
all
through.
of the new decisions are bad, but a lot of them are like, just what? What are you doing?
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know?
just the fact that we have to keep saying formerly known as Twitter. Even X refers to themselves as
formerly Twitter. Like,
Yeah.
then why did you change?
Yeah, like I get emails from them like, hey, there's a new update, on X, formerly Twitter.
Right.
It's like if you have to keep telling people that you're formerly Twitter, then why not? Why did you ever change your name?
And X is that supposed to be creative?
It's supposed to be edgy and cool. Yeah, like the Tesla Model X.
Right. Yeah, he loves that SpaceX.
Yeah.
He loves the letter X. Named his daughter Y, I think.
The chromosome?
Yeah, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just bizarre, and I do hope Twitter pulls through. I don't want it to fail. I like Twitter.
Yeah, we don't want anything to fail necessarily.
It would be sad. I don't know how I'd find all those people again in one place.
We would be losing something that would be special and irreplaceable.
Yeah.
For sure.
Even more so for like the gaming community.
Yeah. Just having access to like Japanese game designers and stuff and being able to communicate directly and know what they're doing is invaluable.
Just like a week ago, the creator of Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi, posted on Twitter like he was at some shrine and he was praying for his health and for good fortune on his new project.
Yeah.
Basically confirming that he's
got
working
another project
on a new game or
we
something.
don't know anything yet, but
I mean, traditionally he's made games, so you can infer that it's probably a game.
Yeah, but is it a mobile game? Is it a console game?
I know. That's the big question. Like, he's in I think he's 61. He just turned 61 recently.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's only so much time left to make a game. I think I hope he goes big one more time.
Yeah, I really hope it's a console game. Like a big, epic console game.
Like, give us another Last Odyssey.
Yeah.
Or something in that vein.
Yeah, or Last Story.
Yeah. It's time.
Yeah. We're due for it.
The gooch. We're ready.
But yeah, we're like, his first mobile game was Party Wave. Then he had another mobile game called
Terra Battle.
No, before Terra Battle. There was Blade Guardian.
Okay.
Which as soon as whatever happened, that got removed and my copy of it stopped working. Like, I couldn't even launch it. Yeah. Loved that freaking game. Okay. It was a tower defense.
Oh,
with like
a
special, like, when your Blade Guardian goes mega or whatever, it turns into a ball and you can roll it around the map.
I remember watching you play this.
Dude, it was the
iPad.
coolest thing ever. Most underrated thing ever. And then there was Terra Battle.
Yeah.
And then
I really liked Terra Battle. I thought Terra Battle was a great mobile game.
A lot of literature in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Which he loves to do. He did that in Lost Odyssey.
And the gameplay itself was actually pretty fun, even though you're just moving tiles around and stuff.
Yeah, it was like a puzzle RPG, like a traditional Tetris-style puzzle RPG.
Right. And then Terra Battle 2 came out, immediately flopped hard.
Yeah.
And then he went quiet for a while.
And there was Terra Wars after that, I think.
I don't even know that Terra Wars saw the light of day.
Okay.
I think it was maybe it did, but that was even shorter lived than Terra Battle.
I thought that was a console title, right?
No.
The
next game he did with Apple, and the name is escaping me now.
Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah, it's a console-ish game. I would like to play it, but unfortunately it's still stuck on Apple TV, Apple Arcade.
Right.
And I'm just not going to play that kind of a game on, an iPad.
Right.
So, hopefully one day it escapes, but I wouldn't mind if he just moved on and worked on something new. I mean, preferably we get both someday.
Yeah, I mean, statute of limitations. Eventually, he can do a physical release on
Yeah.
some.
A lot
future-
of Apple Arcade exclusive stuff has eventually released elsewhere.
Right.
So maybe he's got like a 5-year agreement with Apple or something.
Just go work on something else and then launch it later.
Yeah. Anyways, we got a little off topic there.
Just a little bit.
Anyways, good luck, Gooch. So our next topic, I'm gonna let Rick take the lead on this one.
All right. So Sony again announces the acquisition of a company called iSize. Now, what is iSize?
It's like an iPod, but
No,
okay.
not at all. iSize is a UK company that specializes in deep learning technology for specifically video. Now, this is
Video delivery.
well, I guess, yeah. It's kind of a concept.
Okay.
You know, I guess they do delivery, but the same kind of deep learning is just a concept that applies to a lot of different things. Yeah, they're doing this deep learning for the purposes of bandwidth and delivery. Sony bought them, and their solutions are purposed for the delivery of bitrate and bitrate saving over streaming.
Right. So this is Sony acquiring someone to help them in their streaming efforts.
Right. Now, in a previous episode, I'm going to do a lot of relating here.
Okay.
In a previous episode, I talked about NVIDIA's DLSS graphics card, which Nintendo was working with.
Presumably. We've heard rumblings that they are.
And what that was, just a quick recap, is an AI-based structure that sort of samples pixels throughout an image and then draws out or paints out the rest of it on the front end.
So giving you like fake high resolution image almost.
It's so hard to call it fake because it is a high resolution image that you are getting. It's just not
native.
It's not the original data.
Right.
So what these guys are doing is the exact same concept, and I feel like we are seeing a trend, the beginnings of a trend, that's going to pretty much change everything.
Okay.
I expect to see this AI deep learning applied to audio in the future. I expect it.
Yeah.
So what these guys are doing is taking video data, sampling pixels like down the image, through a dot matrix style pattern.
Okay.
I assume, and then transferring that through the internet, or whatever streaming needs to happen. Maybe not the internet. It could be Bluetooth, whatever PlayStation Portal is going to be.
Right.
And then
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi probably. And then on the front end, the AI software redraws the image. So if 128 by 128 pixels is being sent,
right,
and what results is a 4K image, think about the implication of how, that problem that Google Stadia was facing when it comes to, internet quality for people, in the general population, that this is the solution to that. Laying down new cables is not a viable solution. That's not going to happen.
It's just not.
It's not. This is the solution. This is the industry's solve for that problem.
Right.
And this AI it's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
How, we could just keep doing this. We could just keep reducing stuff, and then AI draws it out.
So is AI drawing it out at the end? Is something on the user's side of things?
Like with any software that involves the internet or networks, there's going to be a back-end part of the software and a front-end portion of the software.
So I guess my question is, does iSize's do we know, does iSize require the user to have certain kind of computational power on the end device where the image is being blown up? Or is it somehow along the way or at the end of the journey of the data, it's then being blown up without anything needing to happen on the user's end?
So what I'm going to assume here, because I don't have their source code.
Right. I don't know that it's even public.
Right.
Or like that information is public.
I'm sure if I did have their source code, I could tell you without a doubt. But the way it makes sense that it would work is on the back end, they have software code that takes a 4K video or gameplay,
right?
And which is video, and does the sampling, the pixel sampling, and then sends the packet being a downsized
version of it.
I'm really just like doing guesswork when I say 128 by 128.
That's a square image, so not likely.
Or it could be 512, whatever height width.
Yeah,
might be different.
Be some kind of rectangular
right.
shape.
So I don't know. Even if it's 1024 by whatever, that's still small compared to 4K.
Right.
So that packet's being sent to the front end. Their iSize would then have front end software that takes that packet and its AI runs every frame.
Right.
This is going to happen every frame, and then renders out a 4K image.
So that tells me then that like Sony would need, this isn't something that like current existing hardware would necessarily be able to take advantage of, unless maybe firmware updates could.
Yeah, firmware updates is how this would be installed on PS5 if they
Right.
were going to do this on PS5.
Right, or even on PlayStation Portal or something like that.
Right, which they would have, that would be feasible.
Right.
They would be able to completely replace the software installed on your
Right.
DualSense controller.
Right. Not the controller, the PlayStation Portal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
PlayStation Portal. I was thinking about the actual... Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking about that.
Because the controller is on the Portal.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably where your brain went. Okay, so that's pretty.
So that's kind of like, in a
interesting.
nutshell, what this concept is,
Right.
that what they're working on. And again, it's very similar to what NVIDIA's doing. NVIDIA's just doing it on the graphics card level, to be able to render out images that are high intensity, high resource, and just intensive
Right.
on smaller hardware.
Right. They're doing it locally without any streaming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're doing it on the performance side of
So
things.
this is almost like DLSS, but for streaming, basically.
Exactly.
That's the simplest way to put it.
Exactly. So you can get away with a smaller bandwidth
Right.
and higher image.
So increasing how like the performance
And
not making it such a strain.
Again, this creates a pattern, and
Yeah.
we're waiting for Microsoft to start jumping on board with the same kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, Microsoft does have a streaming thing. I think they call it xCloud. And I think some documents from the FCC trial and leak and everything that happened with the Activision Blizzard merger, apparently Microsoft had invested nothing, like literally zero, into xCloud in the last year, the last fiscal year.
Right.
Which is interesting to see them kind of backing away from streaming.
So I have like, here's what I think of that immediately.
Okay.
They're kind of like deprecating that because they know that it's running on technology that's not going to be the future.
Right.
And you're likely, I think we might be likely to see them start investing in some new streaming venture that would involve AI.
Right. I mean, you think, though, that, there's no reason you can't keep the name xCloud, just like I doubt Sony's going to do away with PlayStation Remote Play.
They could relaunch it, but I don't see Microsoft or Xbox being super into nostalgia. They might try to come out with something new and edgy.
Okay,
but they could reboot the name.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
It's like a department, the streaming department.
Right, right.
Well, did Sony have anything to say about this acquisition? Did they release a comment of some kind?
Let's see here. Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. So Sony said this about the acquisition. And like real quick, Sony, we've been talking a lot about the merger that happened between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. And then in response to that, we've been talking a lot about Sony making acquisitions. And while this is not a game developer that they're acquiring, we are seeing Sony doing some acquisitions.
Yeah.
It's just more in relation to performance
Yeah.
and hardware and you know, they're,
these are strategic sort of long-term acquisitions.
And that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to like theorize about,
Yeah.
you know. So Sony said this regarding the acquisition. The acquisition provides Sony Interactive Entertainment with significant enterprise in applying
expertise
in applying machine learning to video processing, which will benefit a range of our research and development efforts as well as our video and streaming services. So they're trying to do exactly what I said.
Yeah. It's, I mean, there's, what else do you do with them, I guess?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, Sony is clearly serious about streaming. They do think there must be really big long-term applications. It'll be really curious. The PlayStation Portal is launching tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is their first dedicated streaming device.
Yeah.
It's seemingly unavailable at all retailers at the moment.
PlayStation Portal, though, is still just local streaming from console to peripheral, right?
Yes, your own personal home console is turning on and streaming the game to you. You're not streaming something from Sony servers.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously this is their direction.
Yeah.
It's streaming. We don't know if that's going to be in a Google Stadia capacity in the future. We probably can assume it is.
Really? You think so? I don't think they'll ever...
I don't think replacing what they have,
right,
but adding to what they have.
So you think maybe, like, hey, everyone, you can buy a PlayStation 7, or you can subscribe to this thing where all you need is a controller.
This thing
and your TV.
That they're doing, this iSize, is going to make what Google Stadia's biggest challenge and roadblock was it no longer applicable.
Right.
Like they are, this can work.
Okay.
They can stream Call of Duty 4K using this iSize technology,
right,
and to anybody. You could have a phone, you could have a mobile, roaming network or whatever, and receive. I haven't seen their source code. I don't know how small their packets are going to get. But
I do wonder if we'll publicly hear about iSize's developments going forward, or if they're just going to be absorbed and just become an R&D arm of Sony.
I don't know how public they're going to be after this.
Yeah, we may never hear directly.
I'm going to be paying attention on the developer side of things, but I don't even know how much I'm going to hear there, because this doesn't really impact game development. It more just impacts, them and their hardware and their services.
Okay, so I think we're at an hour and 20 minutes, so I think we should take a quick break real quick.
That's a good time.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
So we're back from break, and I just had a quick follow-up question for Taylor concerning that last topic we talked about, Sony's acquisition of this company iSize. So when it comes to the acquisitions, like I had just said, Microsoft, we see them purchasing a lot of game developers and publishers. And here we're seeing Sony investing in services and hardware.
Right.
Do you think that this is a smart move for Sony? Do you think it's the right way for them? Because, we had talked previously about Sony kind of being the underdog in this acquisition war that we're seeing in the industry. In a way, a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, the war is really between Microsoft and Sony more than it really is about Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo's
more of an underdog, I'd say, in the acquisition world. But between Microsoft and Sony, Sony's got a lot to prove now after Microsoft's big Activision.
So do you think that maybe Sony's acquisitions being invested more in furthering their technological reach is maybe a smart strategy? Because I don't think they could win on just acquiring publishers,
Yeah.
given their budget.
Right. I don't think they have the money to compete with this a Microsoft size purchase of Activision Blizzard. So yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I mean, I don't know that I would correlate these acquisitions the same way you would game studio or game publisher acquisitions,
Mm-hmm.
because Microsoft is constantly absorbing little companies all the time,
Right.
for various things.
I would say they both kind of
Yeah,
are.
even Nintendo, I think it was earlier this year, they acquired like a small mm, I don't want to say movie production company, but like basically little short film kind of advertisement-esque things.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo's done stuff with like Pikmin where they make little claymation movies that are like 3 or 4 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kinds of these weird little acquisitions that
Right.
companies pick up all the time.
Production studios that can handle just like trailer, editing and stuff like that.
Yeah, now I mean I don't think that people should be disregarding this as not a big deal because this could come back to help Sony in a big way and
Mm-hmm.
give them an advantage over rivals
Right.
at a certain point in the future. I don't know how significant this acquisition is of iSize
Mm-hmm.
immediately. We may not see the benefits of this for a decade.
It could amount to nothing realistically.
Or, yeah, never anything.
But if we look at this optimistically and stuff,
Right.
and consider this to be Sony investing in like some, streaming edge over
Right.
Microsoft, I think this would be Sony's ticket to winning in a
Possibly,
way,
yeah. Yeah.
since they can't compete when it comes to acquiring.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's other companies doing similar work to iSize
Right.
with this AI deep learning stuff.
I'm sure Microsoft will catch up.
And maybe Microsoft's doing it in-house for all we know.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like Microsoft's at the point where they're deprecating their old streaming service.
Yeah, they're just maintaining it. They're not, investing anything extra into it.
Right.
I mean, they must see that, like, not many people are taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, Sony has seen that. They've seen success with remote play.
Right.
Remote play has been around since, like, the PSP, PS3.
Right.
So it's something they've been serious about for a long time, and now they're getting even more serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see Sony like go truly all in
Mm-hmm.
on streaming games. Maybe they do. Maybe it's an option. Maybe it's an add-on.
Well, I hope none of them do like go all in on
Yeah.
streaming.
I mean, with PlayStation Portal and Remote Play, they're putting the burden on the user. Like you have to have good internet at home. You have to turn on, your PS5 turns on. We're not turning any servers on to give you access to these games.
Right.
You are your own server.
It has been that way so
Yeah.
far.
I mean, they do have streaming offerings, and they've
Mhm.
recently brought those to PS5 via PlayStation Plus Premium.
well, this iSize, from what I'm understanding, is poised to change that.
Maybe. Yeah.
So, anyways, I think it's interesting because I feel like we're seeing part of Sony's strategy because they know what they're facing with
Yeah.
Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard.
I mean, I like PlayStation Remote Play,
mm-hmm.
but I am not, or I wouldn't say I'm someone who's pro streaming games.
No, neither of us are.
Like, I think PlayStation Remote Play has its place, has its usage as a function.
I'm here for the new thing,
Yeah.
but I don't want the new thing to just replace the old thing.
Yeah.
You
I mean, because, like, if Sony's like, hey, I mean, to me, it's like, oh, not only do you not own, like, if you're buying streaming games,
Yeah.
it's like we said previously, it's worse
Yeah.
than
Then downloading it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, something to keep an eye on. I'm sure if PlayStation Portal ends up being a big success, Sony's going to get a sign that says, hey, we need to keep headed down this path.
Right.
Yeah. So, we'll have more on PlayStation Portal hopefully next week.
I mean, PlayStation Portal isn't necessarily streaming games. You are still playing the game on your console.
Right, but I mean, if you're streaming a game, doesn't matter if it's coming from your server or Sony's server, it's still streaming the game.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of PlayStation Portal, it's sort of like a wireless alternative. That to me is different
I mean,
than.
you can still be in China and your PS5 in California, and you can
That's
stream
true.
the
Yeah,
game.
I see your point.
You know,
I
like
do.
you can be anywhere in the world. I mean, if the Wi-Fi is good on the space station, you can.
As long as I own the game, I'm cool with streaming.
Yeah, I will say one downside to like owning physical games, if you're like gonna really make use of PlayStation Portal, especially if you're away from home, is that like you can't change your disc when you're in another country.
Right,
But if you
right,
had digital games, you could easily switch between them.
right. That's true. Yeah.
So if you are someone who has a lot of digital games, I will say you're at an advantage over someone who buys mostly physical if you want to make use of PlayStation Portal outside of your home.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So there's a perk for digital folks for sure. But we got to move on because we still got a lot of stuff to talk about. So still on the topic of Sony, they had some investor style meeting last week, and they had previously announced before the investor meeting that they had 12 live service games that would be released by March 26th. So for those of you that need a refresher, a live service game is a game where you're persistently connected to the internet. There's usually a big social, cooperative, multiplayer versus kind of component to it. And these games, for every 10 that succeed, 100 have failed. So the fact that Sony's got 12 of these in development, and now they're delaying half of those beyond March of 2026, and now they're only expecting 6 of those 12 titles to release by March of 2026.
So right off the bat, I'm going to jump in and say this sounds very Jim Ryan to me, like this direction.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Ryan, he's been in charge of PlayStation for like 4 or 5 years now, and these kind of live service games, they take a long time to cook.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's not just a game you can put out there. You have to make sure you've got all the hooks to keep the players coming back.
Yeah.
You've got to have that perfect gameplay.
It's got to
loop.
be viewed by a number of teams before like it can, and then not to mention you have a lot of back end work.
Yeah.
Which you don't have in a single player.
Right. And as with all live service games, all these persistent online games, eventually one day, no matter if it's successful or not, the servers will shut down.
Yeah, the game will cease to exist.
Any purchases you made, all of that will eventually go away.
Yes, you are paying for a consumable, temporary product.
You won't be able to revisit and, there's few exceptions of live service games, mostly MMOs that have like transcended, more than a decade.
That's usually due to fan efforts.
Yeah. If people had stopped playing World of Warcraft 15 years ago, World of Warcraft wouldn't be online anymore.
Right.
But even though it's still going, one day it won't.
There are other early, more obscure MMO examples.
Oh yeah, EverQuest.
EverQuest
is still online.
Yeah. But again, that's fan effort. That's not even.
I think
EverQuest,
it still gets official expansions and everything.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a cheap game to, visually it's not like crazy demanding or anything.
They're not like remaking it.
Yeah, like it still looks like a 20-year-old game.
Mm-hmm.
But
RuneScape is
RuneScape
still
is still
going.
out there. Oh man, I played RuneScape for like 2 weeks before I gave some guy my password and I lost my account.
Oh, really?
Well, he had like the special little badge next to his name that indicated that he was like a RuneScape employee or whatever.
Wow.
And I don't know how, it was JavaScript. So
Yeah.
some dude hacked that stuff into the game.
No doubt.
Anyways, he's like, oh, your account's, compromised. I need your password. So yeah, I learned my lesson,
Yeah, don't ever give your password out. No matter
I was
what.
like 12, even if, but yeah, I was chopping a lot of wood for 2 weeks. It was a bummer to lose that.
Yeah, I remember RuneScape. I played that a little longer than 2 weeks. I think it was a few months. I loved the way I was able to make my character look.
Yeah.
That was my biggest memory.
Yeah.
I think I had a red outfit with a feather in my hat. It was great.
Yes, very like a dashing guy.
Like a rake, the red mage from Final Fantasy.
So half, Bungie, they confirmed, and Sony confirmed that, they did have Bungie look at all 12 of these projects, and, due to Bungie's review of their portfolio, That's a big reason why 6 of these games have been pushed out of the 2026
Right.
deadline.
So immediately this reminds me of what happened with Naughty Dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no doubt Naughty Dog's live
Game
service
is part of
is
that.
part of these 12 titles. Sony president Hiroki Totoki said, "We are reviewing this. We are trying as much as possible to ensure these games are enjoyed and liked by gamers for a long time. Of the 12 titles, 6 titles will be released by forecasted year 2025. That's our current plan. As for the remaining 6 titles, we are still working on that. That's the total number of live service and multiplayer titles mid to long term we want to push this kind of service. And that's the unchanged policy of the company. It's not like we stick to certain titles, but game quality should be the most important thing." So this tells me that they're still taking the live service thing seriously. They're not pivoting away from live service just because 6 of these games are being pushed out.
Right.
But I mean, that's insane to me. Sony's got 12 live service games. Your average player probably has time for one.
For one, yeah.
One.
And here's the thing, too. That's too many. I mean, I understand that their thinking is probably, let's do 12 and maybe one will succeed.
That's what's crazy is that if you get a live service game that becomes a massive hit, there is so much money to be made that it's worth trying to make 12 simultaneously. Even if 11 of the 12 fail,
Yeah.
it'll have been worth it just for that one big massive success. That's how much money these live service games can make and generate.
To me, this is a super anti-consumer mindset because you're getting players hooked on games that you plan on failing.
Almost, yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about that.
And then if they're working on, if their studios are working on 12 live service games, how many single player experiences are they working on
Yeah,
too?
exactly.
Some of these studios do not have the capacity to work on 2 games at the same time.
I get that, like, my preferences aren't everyone's preferences, but I know that my preferences aren't unique to just me, and there are other people who enjoy single player titles.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have, some single player masterpieces.
Sony is known for these single player cinematic adventures, and it's kind of crazy to see them shifting away from that.
Yeah.
They want more of these games that they make one rather than making 3 God of War games. Why not just make one that generates money for 10 years straight, and just do little updates to it. I'm not saying they're working on a live service multiplayer game for God of War, but it's we know that they are for the Horizon series. They're making some kind of MMO-ish live service game set in the world of Horizon, which is interesting. It's a world worth exploring in that kind of capacity for sure. But I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to convince Horizon players that are playing these single player games to leave that and switch over to a multiplayer experience. I imagine the onboarding process is going to have to be very particular. They're almost going to have to make it feel like you're playing a single player game even when you're not.
Because Horizon is very single player.
Yeah.
It's like the experience leading into the game is a very single player experience. And for me, like, playing a live service game, it just feels too much like the game was designed for making money. It doesn't...
It can feel obvious and in your face at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
So
it's almost like you have to either find a way to work around it or, not engage with it so much. My favorite live service games, the ones that I played, like, sure, you can spend a bunch of money on it if you want to, but I do think you should be able to do everything the game has to offer without spending money on it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think most people agree.
Yeah. I think there are some amazing, wonderful live service games, and I do think the developers are doing a great job of maintaining it and adding to it. Like, I'm beating an old drum here, but Genshin Impact and now Honkai Star Rail, like I don't mind giving them $5 a month. Like
Yeah.
that's
I mean, I don't talk about this when we talk about what we're playing, but I do turn on Pokemon Go every single day.
oh
I
yeah,
do my dailies, and
yeah.
I pay money,
That
and I'm
is
I'm happy to pay money because it's part of my life.
right
Like I don't mind investing a few bucks. I know that the game's not going to exist at some
at
point,
some point.
but it's a little different because you can transfer Pokemon.
Yeah, you can
Um,
get things out of Pokemon Go.
right, exactly, and I pay for that. That's the only live service experience that I hold on to.
Right.
I can't imagine playing like Overwatch,
Right.
like every day.
I mean,
And,
or even any of Niantic's other games.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I did play Ingress for a while, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
But
There's
you
a
haven't held on it the way you've held on to
no,
Pokemon Go.
of course not.
Yeah. I do think, I mean, this is a whole other topic, but like, I think if not for the Pokemon IP, I don't know how compelling Pokemon Go truly is.
Hmm.
They've tried to slap the Harry Potter skin on Pokemon Go, and that game is already shuttered.
Right. I think that I do praise Niantic for the constant addition of new mechanics that they are introducing to Pokemon Go.
More recently,
I enjoy routes. I haven't gotten the opportunity to engage with this party stuff that they implemented. Um, my biggest issue with Pokemon Go, I don't mind having, Niantic, obviously, their whole thing is they want people to be physical, people to get out.
Right.
They don't want to cater to people using remote raid
Well,
passes.
you know why that is, though. They want your location data.
Right.
They sell that location data for big money.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's big money. You're right.
They like to frame it as like, we want people to get out there and be healthy and be active. And sure, that's a great side benefit of playing Pokemon Go.
They are, I mean, I don't think that's a lie, outright lie.
No.
But yeah, sure, they are probably concealing with that their intention of getting your location data.
Right.
If we take the official narrative,
Right.
at face value, their ambition, according to them, is to get people outside walking, etc.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be a barrier because just the need to rely on other people to do raids, get Pokemon that you otherwise
I
can't
feel
get.
like since the pandemic, since we've sort of come out of it, it's a lot harder to find people playing in person. Now, sometimes there's these sort of like focused areas where people know they can go to find other players. But when you're just like on any street corner, it's harder to find people to do things.
Exactly,
I think,
and that
than it used to be.
doesn't apply to everyone. That benefits people in cities and stuff, but
Oh yeah,
there
sure.
are people who don't live in cities.
If you live in downtown Los Angeles, but if you're in the suburbs like we are,
yeah,
it's sure you stumble on people sometimes.
Yeah, you do.
But other times, you're just like SOL when you're trying to do a particular raid.
I do see an effort from Niantic with like campfire and stuff to try to counteract this barrier, but it's not enough to make. Yeah, I don't know. It's still a problem for me.
Yeah. I mean, campfire's cool. It's been helpful on a couple occasions for me when I see people lighting flares. I was like, oh, there's players over there,
Mm-hmm.
But I play Pokemon Go too. I sort of have an off and on thing. I'm never totally off, but there are times where I get way more into it and I'm like really enthusiastic about it. Then there are other times where I'm just kind of logging in, doing my daily stuff real quick, and then closing the game.
Mm-hmm.
But you spend a fair amount of time with the game.
Well, I have a job that like pretty much allows me to do a Pokemon Go expedition every single night.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in relation to live service games, great example of a game that you pay for. You pay, for coins and in-game currency.
Yeah.
That's as far as I go.
Yeah.
With that stuff.
Yeah.
And I imagine I'm not alone.
No. I mean, there's this term in the live service community and the mobile game community called whales.
Mm-hmm.
And a whale refers to a player who spends a lot of money on free games, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, like Genshin Impact, a whale would be someone who spends, $2,000 every time a new character comes out to make sure they unlock every little node on the character's, tree,
Yeah.
and they get the best weapon at max refinement, and those players, they're essentially funding the game for a
Yeah.
lot of other players who
Right.
don't really spend any money on the game. And on one hand, I'm like, hey, if someone has that kind of money laying around and they want to spend it on that, I guess it's okay.
Right.
My concern, though, is for
They don't
people
have that
who
kind of
don't
money.
have that money,
Right.
and they're ruining their relationships. They're
Yeah,
maxing out their credit cards for
ruining their lives, basically.
yeah, and that does happen.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
People have died
yeah,
playing.
yeah, because like the shame and regret.
Well, also, they sit there too long. And
Right. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's another problem. That can happen with any game,
Yeah.
though.
True.
But yeah, like I mean, horrible things have befallen people who've spent too much money on these
You
games.
spend beyond their means because of
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah, and these games are designed to be addictive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
They have psychologists
hired
Hired.
that help them make the game
Yeah.
addictive. Yeah.
Yeah.
From anything from sound effects to visual little cues that appear on the screen, like it's all designed to release those.
It's funny. So, just as a aside, as a developer, I like to go to these video casinos and stuff whenever I'm in Vegas or anywhere, Laughlin, whatever. And I'm happy to spend quarters and
Yeah.
lose them, so I can videotape like the animations and stuff.
Yeah.
I glean so much like style and animation, tips from that like I can go home and when I'm working on Seraphim, make enemies explode the same way,
Yeah.
release those dopamines.
Yeah.
Because that is fun. I'm not trying to monetize that stuff.
Right.
you
Like
know?
yeah, there's a difference. I mean, those tactics are used in games, all over the place.
Right.
Not, but I think it's even more scummy when it does become the sort of casino-esque, random factor where, yeah, it's just it's bad news. So be careful. Like I play Genshin Impact. I spend responsibly. I spend very within my means, way under. I could spend a lot more on the game and be fine.
Right.
But I just choose not to because it's almost pointless. There's no point in having your character be that powerful. There's no content in the game I can't already do.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the point in going way over the top to make them like the best ultimate version of that character
Right.
when I don't need to do that.
Right.
So
And just knowing it's not going to exist.
yeah, that's the other bit. Like, I'll feel better if after 10 years Genshin Impact sunsets and all I've ever done is spend $5 a month on the game. And so, let's say I've sunk $500 into it by the end. I'll be like, you know what? I got $500 worth of value out of that game.
Yeah.
I spent, by the end, 6,000 hours with the game. I'd be happy with that. But if I was someone who had spent $50,000 on the game by the end,
right.
I'd probably be ready to jump off a cliff.
Yeah, that would do it. It's fine spending money on consumables. Like you would go to Disneyland, you'd pay $150 now
Yeah.
to get in. You're going to spend the day there, and then that $150 is gone, and you
Right.
have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, your memories.
But you have memories,
Yeah.
and you had fun.
That's what I have from my days playing World of Warcraft. I got my memories.
And if you have the money, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're spending on entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's how I justify what I spend in Pokemon Go.
But you got to be okay with at the end of the day that is going to be over.
Yeah, it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am. I mean, Home will live on, and there'll be a successor to Home someday, no
Right.
doubt. So that will continue.
I mean, I don't think Pokemon Go is going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
I mean, it may last through most of our lifetime.
It could.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, that's my take on live service. I think, I don't know, what does this say to you about Sony's financial state, about their, obviously they're still all in based on their statement,
Mm-hmm.
with live service and stuff. But I'm talking specifically about the delaying of 6 of these titles. I mean, 12 live service games simultaneous is a huge amount of, production going on at once. But how do you feel about, I mean, for me, everything about this story screams Jim Ryan.
Well, I thought that too, but then when Sony president says, "Hey, this doesn't mean we're changing course. We're
Right.
still doing this. If it was Jim Ryan's vision that got us here, they're not straying from it.
Right.
They're not like canceling 6 of their games.
Despite Jim Ryan leaving Sony, he's still there currently.
He's in sort of a weird transitional state.
Okay.
I think if they were that unhappy with his direction, he would have just left immediately or vacated immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is sort of a transitional state he's in right now. Some of his duties have already been assumed by others. He's probably helping catch people up to speed, maybe helping find his successor, his official final successor, because right now there's just sort of like going to be an interim person.
Mm-hmm. Right. But yeah, in a nutshell, Sony's working on 12 unannounced live service games.
Mostly unannounced,
Mostly unannounced. 6 of which have now been delayed till the following year, 2025.
Well, beyond March. So forecasted year of 2025 would be March 2025 to like the end of, or April 2025 to March of 2026.
Gotcha.
So now these other 6 games are coming out March 2026 and beyond.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Or April 2026, I should say. That's pretty much the end of that. We've been getting off topic a lot this episode, but some good discussions have been coming from it. But we do need to move along because we still have a few stories we need to talk about.
So Unity is back in the news. They have said that they likely are going to implement layoffs. And this is despite an increase in revenue and a reduction in losses reported. Again, like the previous story, this was probably reported on in one of their shareholder meetings.
Yeah, last week, so many companies held their financial results and meetings and things like that.
Right, and that has to do with quarterly, stock.
Earnings and sales and things.
All that stuff. So if you remember in our previous episode where I did talk about Unity, I think it might have been episode 1.
I think it was episode 1.
John Riccatello, who is the current CEO of Unity, outgoing. He will be gone by the end of the year. He would be doing these layoffs on his way out the door if this happens.
Just in time for Christmas.
Yeah, just in time for Christmas. Not even a month after the decision being made to lay off X amount of employees.
Yeah.
After previously laying off 600 employees back in May, which was 4% of their total staff.
Yeah, so they've already done a huge round of 4% doesn't sound like a lot, but 600 people, that's a lot of people's livelihoods that have just come falling to the ground.
Straight, Unity is not Unity anymore, and that's my feeling, and I think I share that feeling with a lot of users.
And developers.
And Unity developers. Yeah. And all of this, not to mention the previous controversy, which is still kind of an elephant in the room, being the model that they proposed for initial engagement fees, previously called install fees, where they are still going to charge 20 cents, up to 20 cents per initial engagement for every game powered by Unity, going forward.
Yeah.
With certain exceptions based on numerical business.
We discussed this ad nauseum.
I'm not trying to rip that open again.
Thankfully, there haven't really been any new developments on that front.
Yeah,
they're seemingly sticking.
Yeah, they initially came out with something very egregious, then walked it back hard with a new proposal that was a little bit more beneficial. Still kind of favors the big developers,
right?
But it's still not as painful.
Yeah,
just in general. But anyways, yeah. So Unity layoffs again, for a second time this year. Not Jim. I confuse him in my head. John Riccitiello, on his way out, just he could just, be a CEO and sit there in his chair, but no, he's got to continue making decisions. Laying off more people, just
even though their revenue has increased and their losses have been reduced, they still want to lay off more people.
Yeah,
I guess they're still probably not profitable. Or not
I think they're profitable. I think their shareholders probably want more profit.
Yeah.
And they'll not profitable can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like. It could mean that they're just not getting the amount that they want.
Right.
We
talked about Sony getting such a small return.
Yeah.
From all their revenue, they're only taking in a little bit of actual profit. So maybe Unity's bringing in a lot of revenue. Like they said, they have increased revenue.
Or the investors haven't been repaid in full yet for their investment amounts.
But back in May, when they let go of the 4% of employees, the 600 employees, this news got hot on the Unity developer forums.
Yes.
And one user who made the topic, Made from Polygon, shared the nude with developers back in May. And this led to a 12-page topic, and a lot of the developers were mourning the loss and saying all kinds of things about Unity, how they've changed, they're not the same, and the thread was eventually shut down by one of the forum's moderators, presumably a volunteer moderator. They closed the thread because it had run its course.
Right, that's the reason they gave. It couldn't be more on the nose, really.
You gotta love when the moderator decides it's time to end discussion. Yeah, nobody needs to talk about this anymore.
Decides what we can talk about and what doesn't need to be talked about further. And what he said, that being made from polygons, it wasn't even that controversial. It's just his opinion.
It's just stating a fact.
Just stating a fact, really. Unity is cutting another 600 jobs. This is back in May when they cut 600 jobs. In search of long-term profitability, quote unquote. Thought forum users may want to know and couldn't see anything on here about it.
Meaning nobody else had posted on the forum yet about this topic.
Right. Other users chimed in. Hopefully this is the last set of layoffs, but I doubt it. Quite a mountain Unity has to climb still, and that's the opinion, quote unquote, part that I...
Yeah.
And
as we now know, that was not the last round of layoffs.
That wasn't. Yeah, so the user was correct, but again, we can't be talking about this. This has run its course.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to talk about our dirty laundry in public.
Yeah, and on our own forums. Yeah. The Unity that I started developing with, this looks nothing like them, but just. I don't know what to say here. This is just more from Riccitiello. Just
hopefully we won't be hearing much more from him beyond this.
Yeah, one last hurrah to screw everyone.
Imagine you're an employee at Unity. It's the middle of November. Mm-hmm. Your CEO has just said, "Hey, we're going to lay off more people before the end of the year."
Your CEO, who you no doubt like or don't like, who's already announced his resignation.
So now you've got to spend the next 6 to 7 weeks wondering if you're going to have a job by the end of the year.
I don't understand it. These suits, and when I say suit, I'm going to get a little specific. I'm talking about business majors, people who graduated from schools of business, who are in the gaming industry, serving as CEO or high-ranking C-level executives. John Riccitiello, Jim Ryan, a lot of these CEOs that we talk about, they don't have a background in game development. Some of them do. Some of them started out way back in the day, 20 years ago, in game design or in QA. But, now just they move from company to company, just wrecking stuff, and then resigning, and then just
Moving
getting
on
hired,
to another company,
getting a job again, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I ruined this other company. Let me come work for you.
I guess there must be some appeal to the shareholders from these guys that we're not seeing as end users, and so yeah, I mean they must like these layoffs. They must like having a guy who will do the dirty work for them. I don't know, but
like you had mentioned to me Phil Harrison when we were talking privately.
Yeah, we really don't have time to get into Phil Harrison right now.
But just as another example,
yeah,
of
look him up. He's a guy who's gone from company to company for the last 15, 20 years.
I'm sure he will come up in the future.
And just leaving disaster in his wake. We got to move on. We got one more big story and then a shorter story we want to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about some YouTuber drama. Now, this has to do with the completionist, whose name is Gerard Khalil?
I don't know.
Yeah,
the completionist.
Yeah, we're just going to refer to him as the completionist. He has been lying about funding dementia research for the last decade. Now, YouTube journalist Carl Jobst did a quick deep dive onto the Completionist Foundation, the Open Hand Foundation. So this foundation is run by the completionist and his family. It was formed in the wake of their mother's death to help fund dementia research. Through their Indieland events, this is the completionist, he hosts these big streaming events where a bunch of big indie devs show up. There's even celebrities. There was one, oh gosh, what's her name?
You're looking at the wrong guy.
She was in all those horror movies, the Freddy movies.
Yeah, no.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's the Freddy movies. I could be wrong there. She's even shown up to these things.
Yeah.
And so they've been doing these events, I think multiple times a year.
Cool events too.
Yeah, no, cool. The completionist
YouTubers
cool
playing
videos.
indie games.
Yeah.
It's great.
He brings attention to indie games. He highlights them. He gives them a platform, a stage to talk about their game, to pitch their game.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing that he's doing.
It's very cool.
And with these events, they have been asking people to donate funds to the Open Hand Foundation.
Yeah. And
in the last decade, since 2014, they have raised over $600,000. More, actually. But they have $600,000 that has gone undonated to any actual dementia research and cure finding organization. Public records show that not a single cent has been given to any organization. The money continues to pile up, and beyond some administrative spending, approximately $100,000 over the last decade running these Indieland events.
Right.
Basically, them throwing themselves a big party with all their friends once a year to help fund these events where they take in money from people and people that have been misled. They've been telling these people that your money is going to help this organization, this organization, this organization. And the reality is they've never given a cent to any single one of these organizations.
Right.
No interest has been shown to have accrued on any of this money that they've donated. When they file their report, it just keeps showing their pile is growing, but just the money being added on from year to year.
Right.
So I mean, there's no way this $600,000 isn't sitting in a money market or a high yield interest savings account. Who's keeping this interest?
So
and not only that, like the money is losing value every year. It doesn't get spent.
Well, everyone's money is losing value.
So someone who donated $50 back in 2014, 2015, now that's worth $40.
Right.
So that money could have actually gone to do something back then, and now it has less value.
Right. I mean, that's just across the board.
Yeah.
Cash in general is just...
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I mean, like, if they had actually donated it and given it to foundations like they said they would, at least it would have been used back then when it had that value.
Yeah, inflation has definitely hit that.
Oh, yeah. That $600,000 is worth a fraction of what it was worth.
Right.
So Gerard claims... Carl Jobst. I'm so sorry, Carl. You do amazing work.
Yeah, by the Carl, way. Big shout out. Carl Jobst, like, you're a great YouTuber. Your deep dive exposés. I watch all your Billy Mitchell work and stuff. We love you.
Carl finds basically the truth about internet gaming related celebrity scandals and he just exposes them and puts all the documents out there.
Like, at his own risk, he does this stuff.
Like, he's alienating himself big time going after the completionist.
And opening himself up to lawsuits, which he has received.
Yeah.
Carl Jobst, great YouTuber, go check him out.
So Carl actually was able to get a brief conversation going between him and the completionist, I think a few weeks ago before he published this video yesterday. And Gerard claims that he didn't know that the money was still sitting in the account undonated until 2022.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now he's had a year, almost 2 years, to look for a new place to donate the money, right? So you'd think he would have done it by now. Mm-hmm. Nope. Still hasn't done it. And he still goes on stream. If he found out in 2022, and he's since had streams, these Indie Land streams, earlier this year he even had one where he continued to claim that money had already been donated to various charities.
Right.
So that means he's lying. Big time.
Right. It's hard to imagine that he would not know, check in the past however many years. Decade. If it's been donated, who got the money, who got how much.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he just let his brother, who is apparently the person who mostly runs this charity, manage it. And his brother, maybe had misled him or hadn't clued him into everything that had happened.
Right, and he just didn't ask.
Right, he didn't ask, Ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Right.
But, if he claims that he found out in 2022, then why in 2023 was he still telling the public during these streams?
He continued to spout the same stuff, the same non-truths that he was spouting prior to when he supposedly found out.
When he didn't know, and then saying the same things after he supposedly did know about it. So there's this great moment in the first email that Carl exchanges with the completionist brother, where at the end of the email, the guy running the foundation, the completionist brother, says, Carl, do you know of any worthy places we can donate this money?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, dude. You've had a decade to find a worthy cause. How on earth have you not found? You cannot tell me that there are not worthy dementia research organizations out there actually doing good work. Now, I get not wanting to give your money to some charity who's going to do nothing.
Or just anyone. Just anyone.
I get that. I get wanting to be discerning. But I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It does not take a decade.
Yeah. And if, I can understand that, here's my benefit of the doubt scenario for the completionist. I can understand maybe having bitten off more than you can chew with, a big endeavor, like a nonprofit organization, starting, a charity.
Right.
And then you run these events. Maybe your heart is invested in Indie Land, and the charity is just for you in that seat, sort of a tool to draw people into your Indie Land event. And maybe once reality hits and you have all this money and you just don't have the management skills, or
Well,
you know.
here's the thing. Do you really think $600,000 is that much money to the completionist?
No, of course it
The
isn't.
dude's a multimillionaire.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're right. And I'm not thinking that. But I'm thinking, if you're sitting there like, okay, now I got to do all this research on what dementia companies are out there, or not companies, charities
Right.
are out there, and who's a good one, who's not a good one, who do I give this money to? Maybe you just skirt that responsibility for a while.
It seems like they really want to find the company that's like doing the cutting edge like work to
Right.
cure it.
Right.
Like, but you can. I mean, there are plenty of charities that are doing work to help people that
Yeah.
already have dementia.
100%.
So it's like, why does it have to be that like you
Yeah.
only want to give money if it's going to
It
cure
doesn't
it?
have to be a research charity. It could just be a caretaking charity.
Yeah, this is supposedly all in memory of his mom,
Right. So, I mean,
who
Dude.
died young of dementia.
dude, this is your mom's memory.
Yeah, you're doing her a disgrace, man.
I'm not. I don't hate the completionist. I don't think ill of him.
I think this is fixable.
I think it's fixable, and I don't. I'm gonna curb how like bad we're painting this as a scandal. It would be worse if he spent the money on, strippers and drugs or something. That would be a much bigger scandal.
He
He has the money sitting in an account.
Right. I mean, yes. Is there $600,000 somewhere? Yes. It's not like there's when they're telling the IRS we have this much money.
Mm-hmm.
They're not submitting proof that it's there. All they're doing is saying
That's
that it's
true.
there. So
they would be defrauding the IRS if they did
right.
that.
So if they ever got audited, they could be in huge trouble.
Like prison trouble.
I do wonder if the IRS has seen this video.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I have no doubt that he could come up with $600,000.
Yeah, to pay them back. I don't. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just very questionable. He still has yet more than 36 hours after this video has come out now. And
No
the completionist has still yet to issue any kind of public statement. I imagine they're probably scrambling to donate this money really, really fast.
Yeah, probably. And then they'll make their statement.
Yeah.
Which will just look like it was a fix,
Exactly. Yeah. So, but going forward, I mean, yeah, no matter what they do, even if they donate the money, it still looks like they were just doing it because they had to rush to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean,
Going-
questions remain.
yeah,
Where, in particular, my biggest question here, the biggest mystery is if the completionist was genuine, and wanting to donate, and I believe he was. I believe he started this. in
yeah, I
memory
think
of
this
his-
originated from a true place of
Right.
like wanting to do something good.
If what his intentions were true, he would have done something with the money. If his intentions were not true and he was trying to embezzle it and this was all a big scam from the beginning, he would have done something with the money. What explanation is there for, the money still just sitting there?
Yeah,
Like,
it's just there is no good explanation.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
Yeah, I don't know what to
I mean, I think if someone's gonna take the fall, it'll probably be someone from his family, maybe.
This guy was supposed to manage
my
it.
brother, he was in charge of it. This is his. He's gonna come out and probably take full responsibility. If I had to guess,
Yeah.
there's too much at stake for the completion.
If
the brother will still be taken care of, but someone's gotta come take the fall. So they're probably figuring out the best PR move. Who's gonna take the fall, and how do we get this money to someone ASAP that can make use of it?
If the completionist's public persona were damaged, that's all of their income.
I think it's damaged, but I still think there's a possible recovery here.
Right.
I think they can still do the right thing. They're gonna look like dummies for a while.
Yeah.
And if they continue to do these events, they need to be really transparent. Even if they're not legally required to be.
Just make
who's going to want to donate to these events ever again?
Make changes. Make changes to your event where you are actively publish.
Or, instead of donating to a foundation that's going to make another donation,
Mm-hmm.
if when you do these Indie Land events, have the donation go directly to a charitable
show it on
organization.
live stream. Like, someone sends in a donation with a super chat or however they do it. Have, like, another window pop up on the live stream where it shows the respective charity.
But you know why these foundations exist. Because a bunch of people give a donation to the Completionist Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
which in their donation to the Completionist Foundation is probably not a tax write-off. But when he then donates all that $600,000 to a charity, he's got a big fat tax write-off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And meanwhile, nobody else has any kind of tax write-off.
Right.
But he does.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I never buy into these celebrity foundations.
No, I
if
don't.
You want to help, donate directly to a foundation that does good work. Do research. Don't just give money to the Red Cross.
Right.
Look and see how that money gets used,
A charity that actually does work, not just forwards the money to yet another charity.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you're just wasting money. So I don't know. I don't think they can come back and ever ask anybody to donate to this place again.
They would have to really change their live streams and events in a way to really be transparent, where they show the immediate donation going straight to the charity or something.
They need to get those little tubes that used to be at Costco.
Right.
Or they put the check inside of it and it goes across the country.
Exactly. Some animation would be cool.
And then some guy at the other end goes, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on.
Yep.
So yesterday morning, the Game Awards, gaming's biggest night, I guess you could say, of the year, announced all of their nominees. And the Game Awards are taking place on Thursday, December 7th. Rick and I have tickets.
Yep.
I know for a fact I will be there.
I plan on being there.
Rick plans on being there. We'll see if we can, make that happen. I think it would be cool for us both to go there and talk about it on the pod together afterward.
Yeah, we need to do an event. We haven't done one.
Yeah, we need to do a joint event. So we'll all have impressions. Hopefully both of us will have impressions of the event. We'll talk about that second week of December probably.
Yep.
And the Game Awards are taking place in Los Angeles at the Peacock Theater, formerly the Microsoft Theater, formerly the Nokia Theater.
LA Live.
It's a big venue. They do a really big show. There's lots of musical guests. There's celebrity cameos and all kinds of.
They go all out with that.
Yeah, questionable shenanigans. In addition to the awards, there's also a lot of game announcements and various.
A lot of trailers. A lot of.
It's a hybrid show. Yeah, it's very commercial.
It's
for
very
sure.
definitely.
But it's still a good time. I enjoy going. I haven't missed an in-person Game Awards yet, so I'm gonna be there again.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to talk about some of the categories, and as well as real quick kind of run down what games were nominated for Game of the Year. So you want to talk about some of the category examples?
Yeah, sure. So 31 different categories. A couple examples. Best score in music is an award.
It's a good one.
Best performance. That's being for voice and motion capture.
Yeah, some people might just provide their voice, but a lot of people now do both.
Right, and their face and all that. Yeah. Best action game. Best debut indie.
Yep. Separate
from best indie title.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
debut indie, meaning like a brand new indie studio, their first game.
A company's first game, who is indie. Best game direction.
Now that one, I feel like best game direction is really for, it's like, most of these awards are for a game, and that represents like the whole team.
Yeah.
But like best game direction, that's like for the director of the game.
Which makes sense because they have like best art direction and stuff. That'd be the art director's award.
I mean, there's a department, but yeah.
And the composer, obviously.
Yeah,
best
that
score.
one's almost singular always.
Yeah. And the game of the year, obviously.
Yeah, so game of the year being the really big highlight, the most anticipated. It's always the award at the tail end of the show.
It's not my personal favorite award. It's not the one that I look forward to, but
it's the one people are arguing about
yeah.
on the internet,
yes.
and we'll be discussing ad nauseum for weeks after the show is over.
Right.
So this year's nominees, and some of these are cool to see, like Alan Wake 2 getting nominated for Game of the Year. Alan Wake is this old Xbox 360 PC cult game. And now, 15 years later, they've just come out with a sequel, like not even a month ago. And it's been a big hit. Players really enjoy it. It's very atmospheric, very story-driven. And it's getting rave reviews from critics and users alike. And then we have Baldur's Gate 3, which was this game that I don't know that anybody was expecting to be as big as it was. But people love it. It plays like a Dungeons and Dragons style rule set.
Well, it's set in the Forgotten Realms novel universe and all that.
Yeah. And, I think people are largely expecting that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to run away with a lot of these Game of the Year awards at various outlets, the Game of the Year, or the Game Awards included. We have Marvel Spider-Man 2, which I'm not shocked to see it on this list, but it's a very by the numbers sequel.
Yeah, that's the one I feel like people are going to be the most disappointed if it gets.
Oh yeah, if Marvel Spider-Man 2 wins, people will be like
over these other ones.
Yeah. And then we have Resident Evil 4, which is the 2023 version of Resident Evil 4, which is a from the ground up remake of one of the most beloved titles in gaming history. So of course the remake is also going to be, I mean, sure, you can screw up a remake, but they didn't. No. They made a good remake.
Yeah.
That was a little
does that support VR? I think it
has a VR mode coming if it's not out yet.
Okay.
But it's not like an optional purchase, it's just going to be included. I believe Sony commissioned Capcom essentially to
I saw part of it and I couldn't do it. I had no way.
Some people were saying, wow, I can't believe Resident Evil 4 got on there over Street Fighter 6. The Game Awards has historically never nominated a fighting game for Game of the Year.
Yeah, that kind of like genre bias.
There is a best fighting game award which Street Fighter 6 will no doubt take this year.
Yeah.
But it's definitely disappointing to see, that kind of a game get snubbed again. I think maybe Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was nominated for Game of the Year. I know it did win Best Fighting Game, but I don't think it won Game of the Year.
Well, according to Nintendo, it's not a fighting game.
Well, it was nominated as a fighting game. And then we have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which, you heard me talk about it earlier. I think it's definitely a worthy title to be nominated. I mean, kind of crazy to think that a 2D Mario game is nominated for Game of the Year.
On par with Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, and it truly is. I mean, it's a very different game. There's less and less games like it, so I think that does also help make it stand out more from the crowd.
Less competition.
Yeah. And then truly is just like a joy to play.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of games forget to be fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're so worried about how cinematic and realistic, and do we have all the right big names attached to it? Yeah,
that's like fun gets lost.
Right.
So it's cool to just see a game that's fun.
Well, that's what Nintendo is always.
I mean, Spider-Man 2 is it's a lot of fun. I know that game is a lot of fun. But yeah, some of these other games, I mean, Alan Wake 2, I know that game is probably like very intense and dreary and scary. They pitched it as like a horror game.
Yeah, well, Alan Wake 1 was a horror game.
Yeah, but I think more scary rather than just like spooky.
Right.
Yeah.
Psychological.
Yeah, like this one is actually like you'll jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then of course The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, who had this award in the bag until Baldur's Gate 3 showed up a couple months ago.
Right.
So, a lot of people were thinking, Zelda's got it this year. There's no way they don't have it this year. But I mean, there's really only two options, I think, for Game of the Year who wins. I think it's either Baldur's Gate 3 or it's Zelda, but I think the split is like probably 80% chance Baldur's Gate 3, 20% chance Zelda.
So you think it's going to go to Baldur's Gate 3?
I put money on it.
Yeah.
I put 100. If someone was like, "I'll bet you $100 that it's Zelda," I would take $100 on Baldur's Gate 3.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I can't really say, but I will say that like the biggest letdown will come with Spider-Man 2. Like there will be disappointment.
Yeah. Well, I think there would be more genuine puzzlement if Spider-Man 2 wins. If Super Mario Brothers Wonder went, I think there would be some people upset too, but it would be like the shooter gamer, I only play, realistic looking games.
Yeah, the bro game.
Like, what's with this kitty game winning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see some disappointment there as well. But yeah, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to take it. I think Zelda at this point would be a little bit of an upset. I mean, me personally, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 because it's a digital only release, but they've been teasing that.
How do you feel Zelda would be an upset?
Because I think it is really. The consensus seems to be that Baldur's Gate 3 is just the better game.
Okay. So it would be a slap to the Baldur's Gate people.
Not that it would be a slap, it just seems to be the expectation that I think what Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has going against it is that it does recycle a lot from Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
You think Spider-Man 2 doesn't recycle a lot?
Oh yeah,
from
but
Spider-Man?
I'm not. Spider-Man 2 is not even in the conversation for Game of the Year.
Like
it is in the conversation, but it doesn't pose a chance.
I guess I'm dismissing it as a proper critique. Like the fact that it recycles assets, what sequel doesn't?
And then again, I think Tears of the Kingdom stands on its own aside from Breath of the Wild, and I think it is worth a full package price for Tears of the Kingdom. But when you have something, all these games are sequels.
Yeah.
Every single one of these games is a sequel of some kind. So they're all something came before all of them that they're based on. They're all derivative of something that came prior. But I think Baldur's Gate 3 took something and expanded on it on a bigger way than any of these other games did. Just in terms of the actual gameplay itself and the performances of the game and just overall. I think it's got an edge over Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, sure, yeah, I'm sure there's tons of recycled stuff in that game. They pull from the other games that they worked on. But, like, it's not physically, it doesn't look exactly like the previous game did,
Right.
Whereas, like, Zelda, you recognize a lot of pieces of the game.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of the landmarks are still exactly where they were and how they appeared. And a lot of things have changed in that game as well. Now, I know I'm going to the Game Awards. More than anything, I want to get, and this is like, if I have a chance, a small opportunity to meet the Zelda guys for 1 second, that would like make a huge dream come true for me. At the Game Awards where they won for Breath of the Wild, I didn't bring anything with me. I didn't plan on bringing anything with me, and I was right next to them at one point. Like, if I had my copy of the game, it could have been like, "Hey, could you sign?" They were on mile 10 million, they just won the award. They were like,
they would have done it.
Oh yeah, they would have been like, oh yeah, I'm a rock star, here you go.
Right.
And so it would be a bummer if they lose and then I bump into them afterward.
Can you sign?
And they're like, no, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'll be able to bring anything in to the Game Awards. I feel like they're cracking down more and more on security.
Yeah.
But if I can sneak my game case in with me with the cover of the game, I'm gonna try. Okay, I think you got any final thoughts you want to share, or should we put a pin in this one?
That's about it. End transmission.